The MPC grid view is actually quite intuitive, but I know if you're new to the MPC, if you're coming from a different DAW, or you already been on the MPC for a while, but you still don't have a complete understanding, you may still feel like the workflow is a bit too slow and wish that they have more functions, even like a compatibility to use your own mouse. Yeah, producers actually want to use a mouse with the MPC standalone.
What?
So in today's video, I'm gonna be going into depth on everything you should know about the grid view, and I promise by the end of this video, you'll have a fast and more efficient workflow, or you realize you're better off on FL Studio. So let's get into it. So a quick way to go into grid view is you could double tap on main. You could also go from the home screen and just click on the grid view on the left-hand side. Or if, let's say you're on the menu screen and you want to access it, the pull-out menu is right here. Or if you're just in any kind of other options, you can always just pull out this screen and just go to grid view. So the first thing I want to start off is the Q links, because with the Q links is going to be what really improves your workflow on the grid view. And right now we're just going to talk about the first page of the Q links and the fourth page of the Q links. So you can see that the first page has program levels, playhead, horizontal scroll, and horizontal zoom. So for the first knob, you could change your program levels, and the playhead, you could just move around a lot more faster just by doing this. And you can also zoom in with horizontal zoom. So it may get annoying trying to scroll and seeing this screen pop up a lot. So what you want to do is just hold down Q links and then take it off show Q link status when touch. Now it's not there. So now you could just zoom in and out freely without having to see that. Now we could go to the fourth page of the Q link. A quicker way to cycle through your Q links, you could just hold down shift and hit Q link, and now we at page 4. And I just also want to mention that you may see that is in horizontal versus how we usually see it from up and down. Don't let that confuse you. All it means is that starting from the first one is going to be the first knob. So it's the first to last. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So for the first knob of the fourth page Q link, we have the tempo, then we have the sequence length, so we could change up the bars, and we have the loop start and the loop end. So we're probably not going to mess with the tempo a lot while we're in a project, but we probably will mess with the sequence bar. As you can see that I could start to zoom in. Let's say I just want to loop around bar 2. And you can also extend your bars as well. So with that and the loop starting points and the loop end points, you could possibly just arrange your whole beat just like this in your grid view. And this could give you that linear arrangement that you have on a DAW. Let's say you have a 4-bar loop for the intro. Just do your intro right here. It could be on a whole different track. And then you move from that to the next 4 bars or the next 8 bars, however you want to do it. As long as you understand arrangement in the sense of, you know, intro, chorus, verse, bridge, and all of that, you could just start to plan it out that way. And if you need more bars, you could just keep extending out. So now I could just start from that point and then work around with that loop, and then so on and so on. Now I haven't tried this, but I just thought about it, and it can actually be quite intuitive. So if you want me to do a video on arranging in the grid view, leave a comment below. So now that we have our main Q link functions, let's get to the top of the screen. So in the top of the screen, you can see that we could cycle through our tracks very fast. For this beat, you know, I only use about 2 tracks. And then you can see that we have the bar sequencer. It does the same thing as our second knob on the fourth Q link page. And now we have this box right here. So you might not be able to see it, but this is going to show bars, beats, and ticks. As you can see, you have 1, and then you have the number 2 right here. And then in between, you have 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Those are just signifying the beats between a bar. So counting 1 bar is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're in the 4/4 time signature. Now, you don't have to get all crazy with time signature if you're new. Just understand this is how your music is being measured in the grid view. And then ticks is just the spaces that are between each of your beats. The space between the 1.2 is going to be your ticks. Now moving on to this box right here. So now you have the zoom feature. I see a lot of people like to zoom in different ways. They could zoom with their thumb and their index finger, or, you know, do it with their 2 fingers like this. I know a lot of people don't like the response that they get from the touchscreen. If you have this plastic still on your screen, some say that does interfere with the responsiveness, and I believe so, because this plastic is pretty thick. They say that you can get like a thinner piece to put on your screen if you want to protect your screen. For me, I'm not going to take mine off. It's not that serious. But for you, if you feel like it's not responsive enough, just probably take this off and you'll probably notice a big difference. But the way I like to zoom, and I feel that's more efficient for me, is to actually use 2 of my index fingers and then swipe to the side. Because if you're doing this like diagonal, this is probably another reason why it's not working as well as you want it to, because it needs to be able to go horizontal and vertical. You can see how fast I could just zoom in, zoom up like that. Or you could just use the Q links. And at certain points, you might just be switching off between both. Now going to the selection tool, you're able to just select your notes and then you can just move them around. Now moving on to the eraser. So there's about 5 ways that you could go about erasing any event on your MPC. The first one is pretty simple. You know, you could just click on a note and you could just erase it just like that. My second option that I personally use a lot, I just use the select tool and just highlight what I want to be deleted. Let's say I want to delete that clap right there, and then I just cut it. Or let's say I want to erase a couple of kicks right here. I could just highlight it and delete it. You can also erase with the pencil tool, but that is not the best because if you click on a note, you just have to double tap. But let's say you weren't zoomed in, it could get kind of funky and you start clicking everywhere. But as long as you zoom in, I don't think you will really have a big issue. Or you could also just hit this erase button. Let's say I want to erase everything from bar 1 to bar 2. Let's do it. As you can see, it erased everything from bar 1 to bar 2. And we could just press undo to bring it back and shift undo to redo the undo. Let's go back to the eraser tool. We could also erase automation. Now I'm not going to really cover automation in this video because I actually did a video about automation and the XY effects, so you could check that out as well. But what I like too is I can hit a note. Let's say I want to erase the kicks and I want to erase the snares, and then press do it. And once again, you can still use what part that you want to erase. Let's say I hit the note, I don't want my kick and the snare at part 2 to 3. Do it, and it takes it out from that section. But it gets even better. I like to use accept notes. So let's say you have like all 16 pads filled and you know you just want to erase a couple of pads. I could just hit any of these pads. There's nothing right in these pads, but you get to see how it's being highlighted. And let's say I also want to just keep my snare. So the things that are in red is what you're going to keep, and everything in yellow is going to get deleted. Let's see how that looks. Now I just only have my snares. Now for the 5th way, it's going to be erasing in real time. So erasing in real time, you pretty much just do overdub and play start like you're about to record something over it. And then you hold down erase, and then you hold down the pad that you want to erase. So for instance, I'm going to show you the hi-hat. And I can erase multiple pads all at once just by holding down on them. So that might be a faster way to actually delete a lot of things at once. You just find what works for you. I just gave you 5 ways. So let me know in the comment, what is your favorite method to erase? Now for the pencil tool, it's pretty self-explanatory. You could punch in your notes just like this. Now go into the settings right here. Now let's talk about absolute and relative snap mode. So the difference between absolute and relative is just more so when you're playing without the quantization. As you can see, a couple of these notes are off. If I go to time correction and I just snap it, everything goes onto grid. Now, if I undo that and I click to relative, I can still keep that little swing that I have. Let's say I kind of like when this note is a bit off. I can still snap it over to different parts and still keep that duration. That comes useful. Let's say you're playing live and you like how your notes are, but you just want to bring it in a bit closer. But for me personally, I probably just highlight it and put on don't snap, and then just scroll a bit close if I wanted to that way. And then you have this option, hitting pad selects all events. Now what that does, if you go back to the grid, I can just hit a pad and then you can see that it highlights all the notes. Now if I had that off, it wouldn't do that. I don't see why you would have it off. This actually helps you with your workflow, but It's to each his own. I like to have mine on. And then you have your auto scroll. You can have it on off, you can have it on follow, and you can have it on page. Now with off, as you can see, if I'm zoomed in and I'm just playing, you can see that it's going to the other page and I can't see the other page. It's just staying on the first page. This can be good if you're just wanting to edit and like wait for it to loop back around. But sometimes follow is probably the best choice. Just so you can follow along with your project, and you can even use your horizontal while scrolling. Or you could just do it page to page. For the most part, you might just be switching between follow and off. Now let's talk about the bottom right here. As you can see, the don't snap is right here. There's also this little zoom icons, like a reset point pretty much. Now switching over to more of the piano roll version of the grid view, just so you can see the workflow is still the same. Now we have nudge. So nudge is pretty much just moving a note across. So we could just zoom in a bit. Let's say we just wanted to move it over a bit, we can do it like that. But for me, if I'm gonna do it that way, I actually want to hit note repeat and change my grid mode like an 8 notes, so I could just do faster snaps instead of it like snapping in between smaller increments. And then you have edit start. All edit start does is make you start at a different point, and then I could use edit end to bring it over. And I could also transpose. I could just move it up. But for me, if I'm gonna transpose the whole track like that, I would rather do it from the main screen and then just transpose it like this way. That way it's affecting all the MIDI, and it only does it for the MIDI. It's not gonna transpose the sample. With transposing the sample, you're still gonna have to go to menu pad 14 and go to the sample and switch it from there. Or you can switch it from the global pitch of your samples. And then the next will be automation. Now with automation, you can control the velocity. Let's say I want to control the velocity of these hi-hats right here. I could easily hit velocity and then use my scroll wheel. And you can see the middle screen, the numbers are popping up. But you can see that the color changed to yellow. So it goes from yellow, which is the lowest, to orange, which is like middle volume, and red to being like the loudest. And if you want to see the screen a lot better, just use this arrow, and then you could just mess with the automation from here. And then if you go to the pencil tool, you could kind of just draw automation of the volume, something like this. And since we're talking about hi-hats, let's actually go into hi-hat rolls. Now this is when we go to the note repeat in the top left corner, and we could choose the different time divisions. And the note repeat time division is also synced with the time correction. So whatever you have your note repeat on is going to be the same. So let's say I have it on 8 and triplets. If you go to time correction, it's also going to be on 8 and triplets. So keep that in mind. And when it comes to note repeat, you don't have to hold it like this. You can just actually hold down shift and hit note repeat, and that's called latching it, which keeps it in place. So then I could just mess with any pad. Let's just do some hi-hat rolls. But let's try some 16 notes. Now there's also another way you can do your note repeats or different rolls, and that's by using the ratchet. This is what ratchet is. Let's just zoom in a bit so I can show you. And if you want to take it off the latch mode, just hit shift. So we go to our automation, and then we click on velocity and use our data wheel and click in. We can see ratchet. So with ratchet now, let's pull up our notes again. I could go to like a certain hi-hat. Let's say this one right here. I could use the scroll wheel, and what it's doing is splitting it. So if I zoom in just a bit closer so you can see, it just divided those hi-hat rolls. So you could do your hi-hat rolls individually like this. And I could even split it even more. So that's automation. Now, if you hold down shift, you get to see that you have other features like cut, copy, paste, and mute, and solo. This is where you could turn on your time correction just right there instead of hitting time correction. So let me just go back to Q links real quick and let's talk about those 2 pages that we didn't go over. Now that we have a bit of a better understanding of the grid view, you can see now on the second page, you have your time correct, your time division, and your swing, and your time correct strength. Now, you're probably not going to mess with the time correct strength, and the time division, that's cool that you can mess with it right there. But the swing, this is a trick that you probably didn't know. So let's go to menu real quick. Go to preference. You want to go to sequencer, and then right above the PPQN, you want to check this box which says Q-Link swing control applies to settings on release. Now with that, having time correction on and your swing on, and keep in mind swing goes only up to 75, so you don't have to get all crazy. Just even going to 52 makes a big difference. Let's say I want to keep my kicks and the snares on the grid and have my hi-hat swing. I can hit my hi-hat pads, and as you can see, it's all selected. Since I'm on the second page, I could just mess around with the third knob, and you might want to turn on your Q-Link so you can see where you at with your swing, or if you just want to just play it by ear, you can do it that way. Let's just hear how the groove starts to change. You got to make sure it releases before you actually play it. You can't just be scrolling and it's playing. No, like you got to give it some time. If I was to get crazy, see, at 53, you already getting like a good swing, and you can always go back into time correction, and you can just do that with everything. And you can find different bounces just like that. Now, another tip with time correction, let's say, you know, I want all these notes to like be stretched out. Instead of trying to like do the edit end for each individual notes, I could just go to TC, and from start, I could just do legato. Now, legato is going to stretch it all out. This is very useful, man, because it's like when you have like long chord progressions and you playing it and it cuts off at certain points, but you just want to stretch it out, just do that. Now, if you made it this far in the video, comment below what's been a very helpful tip to you so far. Now let's get into how to copy and paste. There's about 3 ways you could copy and paste. Let's go over the first one. So right here, I'm just going to delete these notes. So let's say I wanted to just copy the first bar over to the second bar. It's easy to do that by just hitting copy, and it's going to snap. And as you can see, it didn't snap to that point. It's not a big of a deal. You could just use your data wheel to scroll back over and it will snap as long as you have it on absolute. So that's why I say you're probably going to be using absolute most of the time. Now, another way you can copy and paste is using shift and hit copy, but I want to clear this space right here. But I'm going to show you another way of how you could just insert blank spaces into your grid view. Go to main, go to sequence, hit that pencil tool, and then insert bars. I can insert about, let's say 2 bars with the time signature. You put that in, and right here it says before bar. So it could be before the 8 bar, before the 6, before the 4. I'm just going to do before the 4th bar. Now let's go back to our grid view, hit main twice, and as you can see, it made that space. I could hit copy since it's highlighted, and then I could hit shift and the Q-Link to move back one to the first Q-Link page. Use the playhead, come over to, you know, bar 10, and then press paste. Now the third way is more intrusive. And I'm saying that because you're probably not going to do it this way. This is like all these settings right here. It's pretty much, you can do the same thing in grid view, but they just, since it's like a computer, it just gives you more functions. I could actually copy bars, and I could copy them to another sequence. So if you're a technical producer and you know what you did in sequence 3, bar 4 to bar 6, then this may be your kind of thing, because you could copy what you did in like bar 1 in sequence 1, and then you could go to the amount of bars you want to copy over. Let's say we want to copy bar 1 all the way to bar 4, and then we want to put it in another sequence or keep the same sequence. You know, we could pick after what bar we want to start on the second sequence or whatever, and how many copies. That is very technical, but I just wanted to show you that just in case that may be something you want to work with. But in my opinion, if I'm copying over anything, I would just rather just press double the length. I pretty much just went over everything on the grid view. Let me know if I'm missing something. But if you're still finding the workflow kind of slow, you may want to reconsider if being on an MPC is what you truly want to do. Out of my producer journey, I realized self-awareness is a big thing. If you're someone that really just loves to edit in the piano roll and you're more of that on-the-go producer that's making it on the laptop and that's how you want to be, then you're probably going to be better off on a DAW. But I promise you also, if you learn finger drumming, that is very big. It's going to speed up your MPC workflow, and just take it day by day. You're going to be able to come up with more unique rhythms, and you're just going to have a lot more fun on the MPC. So thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful and you want more functional tips on the MPC like this, you can watch this video next.